Hey, let me ask you something. When you heard that the Cowboys signed wide receiver Tyron Billy Johnson, what was your first reaction? Be honest. Did you shrug it off as just another camp body? Or did you pause for a second and wonder, wait, what are they really doing here? Because let's be real. On the surface, this might seem like a small move, a quiet signing that barely made a ripple in national headlines. But if you're a die-hard Cowboys fan like I am, and I know you are, then you know better than to brush off any roster addition, especially at a position like wide receiver, where we've been waiting for clarity all offseason. Tyron Billy Johnson, formerly known as Tyron Johnson, has been around the league for a few years now. He's bounced from team to team, Chargers, Raiders, Jags, Texans, you name it. But despite the movement, there's something about him that keeps teams interested. He's got blazing speed. We're talking about a legit 4.3 guy who can take the top off a defense if given the chance. So why the Cowboys? Why now? That's where it gets interesting. It's not like they don't already have big names at receiver. CeeDee Lamb is a superstar. Brandon Cooks brings experience, and Jalen Tolbert has been working hard to earn his snaps. So why bring in a guy like Billy Johnson this late in the game? Could this be about special teams, maybe depth insurance, or is it a quiet signal that they're not totally sold on the back end of that WR room? I want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this just a routine roster shuffle, or is there a deeper message behind the signing? And while you're at it, vote in our poll. Was Tyron Billy Johnson signed for camp depth or real competition? Coming up next, let's dive deeper into Billy Johnson's profile and what his strengths and weaknesses tell us about how he could actually fit into this offense. All right, now that we've talked about what the Cowboys did, let's talk about who Tyron Billy Johnson really is. Because the more you dig into his background, the more this move starts to make sense, or at least raise some interesting possibilities. Billy Johnson played his college ball at Oklahoma State, and while he didn't put up monster numbers, he flashed enough upside to catch the attention of NFL scouts. What really stands out? Speed. Pure, unfiltered, game-breaking speed. We're talking about a guy who ran in the low 4.3s and has proven on tape that he can stretch the field vertically in a big way. That's his calling card. He's not a polished route technician, and you're not going to rely on him to run the full route tree like CeeDee Lamb, but if you need someone to fly down the sideline and open things up underneath, that's where he thrives. He had a brief but memorable stretch with the Chargers back in 2020, averaging over 19 yards per catch. 19. That's not a typo. He made big plays in limited opportunities, and for a team like Dallas that's looking to add more explosive elements. To its offense, that stat line is hard to ignore, but, and this is important, he's also bounced around a lot. 8 different teams in just a few years. That raises the question, why hasn't he stuck anywhere? The answer likely lies in consistency. His hands have been shaky at times, and he hasn't always excelled on special teams, which is often the key to staying on a roster when you're fighting for a WR5 or WR6 spot. Still, the talent is there. The upside is real. He's the kind of player who, if he hits, can make a couple of splash plays that swing a game. So here's a question for you. Would you rather the Cowboys go with high-ceiling upside like Billy Johnson or play it safe with more reliable but less explosive depth options? Let me know in the comments, and stick around, because next, we're breaking down what this signing says about the current state of the Cowboys' WR room and what it might signal about future roster decisions. So, what does Tyron Billy Johnson signing really mean for the Cowboys' wide receiver room? Because let's be honest, you don't bring in a guy like this in mid-June unless you're either seeing a need or preparing for a shakeup. Let's start at the top. CeeDee Lamb is obviously WR1, no question there. Brandon Cooks is your savvy veteran deep threat. Jalen Tolbert has quietly been building trust and could step into a WR3 role, and then there's Kevontae Turpin, whose role is still somewhat of a mystery beyond return duties. After that, it gets murky. Guys like Jalen Brooks, Ryan Flournoy, and others are fighting for a spot. And this is exactly where Billy Johnson fits in. The Cowboys are clearly looking to foster some real competition in the back end of that WR depth chart. Billy Johnson might not be walking in to take over a starting job, but he absolutely has the tools to make things uncomfortable for someone trying to earn a WR5 or WR6 slot. If he can show consistency in camp and flash on a few deep shots in preseason games, he could push someone like Jalen Brooks or even Turpin, depending on how they value roles. And here's something worth watching. The Cowboys may want to rotate their wideouts more this year, especially to avoid overloading ceedee or Cooks early in the season. Having a speedster like Billy Johnson who can pop in for 10-12 snaps and demand safety attention downfield, that gives this offense another layer. Let's not forget, this move could also be about sending a message. If you're not producing, we're bringing in someone who will. That kind of internal pressure can bring out the best in camp battles, especially in a room full of young receivers trying to make the leap. Quick poll. Who do you think is most at risk of losing their spot in the Cowboys WR room after this signing? Turpin, Jalen Brooks, Flournoy. None. Billy Johnson won't make it past camp. Drop your pick in the comments. I want to see where you stand. Next up, let's take a look at the front office's strategy behind this move and how it ties into their long-term WR vision. All right, now let's zoom out for a second. Because Tyron Billy Johnson's signing isn't just about one more receiver in camp. It's a glimpse into the Cowboys' bigger picture thinking at wide receiver, and possibly at how they want to construct this roster moving forward. For starters, let's talk about value. This front office loves a low-risk, high-reward move. Billy Johnson comes in cheap, with speed to burn and nothing guaranteed. If he flops, you move on. If he flashes, you just added a potential field stretcher without burning a draft pick or handing out a real contract. That's the kind of efficient roster management the Cowboys have leaned on, especially when they're trying to extend stars like CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. But there's another angle here. Insurance. You know how much the Cowboys love to stand pat at wide receiver during the offseason, right? They didn't make a big splash in free agency. They didn't draft a receiver early. So this kind of move says, we know we're thin, we're not blind, and we're not going to wait until it's too late. It's a proactive step to find diamonds in the rough before injuries or underperformance force their hand. And here's the long-term play. If Billy Johnson shows out during training camp and preseason, and you can stash him or carry him as WR6, that buys you time. It gives you a vertical option you don't currently have behind Cooks, and it lets you make smarter choices in 2025 and beyond without panicking if Cooks slows down or Lamb needs more support. Also, let's be real. The Cowboys have shown a pattern of late. Bring in speed, let it compete, and see who survives. Turpin, Cavante, Brooks, now Billy Johnson. It's speed battles across the board. This move might just be the front office doubling down on that identity. Quick strike offense with multiple vertical threats. So here's the question for you. Do you think the Cowboys should still pursue a trade for a proven WR2 or ride it out with what they have? Vote in the comments. I'm curious where you land on this. Coming up next, let's talk about what Billy Johnson needs to do to actually make this team and what his path to a roster spot looks like. So now that Tyron Billy Johnson is in the building, what's it actually going to take for him to stick around? Let's keep it real. It's an uphill battle. The Cowboys' wide receiver room might not be stacked, but it is competitive. Lamb, Cooks, Tolbert, and Turpin are all locks. Then you've got rookies like Ryan Flournoy and names like Jalen Cropper and David Durden trying to carve out a role. That's a traffic jam if you're sitting at the bottom of the depth chart. But Billy Johnson has one thing that could separate him: speed. And not just fast on paper speed, game speed, the kind that shows up in live reps. If he can take the top off the defense in preseason games and force cornerbacks to respect that vertical threat, that's his calling card. That's how he gets noticed. Next up, special teams. Like it or not, the back end of the receiver depth chart is often decided by who can contribute on kicks and punts. Even though Billy Johnson hasn't been a returner in the NFL yet, showing some willingness and ability, there could be the difference between making the 53 or heading to the practice squad, or the waiver wire. And let's talk about consistency. This is where so many fringe players lose their shot. You can't just flash once in Oxnard or have one big catch in the preseason opener. You've got to stack days. Billy Johnson needs to show up every day in camp like a man on a mission, beating corners, catching everything, staying healthy, and showing he's locked in mentally. Last thing, timing. Injuries happen. Opportunities open. If someone like Tolbert or Flournoy goes down or struggles, Billy Johnson needs to be the one standing out. This league rewards preparation, not potential. So the window is small, but the path is there. So let's put it to you. Do you believe Tyron Billy Johnson has a real shot to make this 53-man roster? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's debate it. And if you made it this far, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and stay locked in for more Cowboys coverage every single day right here on Cowboys News TV.